everyone, welcome back. My name is Yuna and this is yet another reading vlog. I had a lot of fun filming and sharing my romantasy reading vlog with you guys last month. This is going to be a slightly different vlog and it's probably going to be structured differently too. If you've watched my April TVR video, then you will already know that I am going to be heading to Hawaii to attend a conference for work. So I'm going on a work trip and then I'm heading to California to visit a couple friends. If you watch my recent video where I talk about getting books just based on their covers and comparing to see if the actual stories were as enjoyable as the visuals, then you'll already know that this is going to be a reading vlog in which I'm going to be doing a similar thing. I have 3 books that I picked up based solely on their covers just because I thought that the art was so beautiful. I haven't looked at any of these books, so I don't know the premise of them. I did quick searches on the authors just to make sure they weren't awful people or anything like that, but I don't really know what the plot is for any of them. I have no idea what the premise is. I don't know even what the genre is for any of these books. And in this vlog, I'm going to read all of them, give you my thoughts, and at the end come back and let you know if I think the stories were as good as the cover suggests. That I'm going to be reading for this vlog is The 7 Moons of Maali Almeida by Shahan Karunatalaka. The cover for this book is insanely beautiful. I was absolutely drawn to it. I had no idea what this book was about, but I saw it on Pango and I was just like zoomed in, locked in. It's just so colorful and vivid and beautiful. I feel so alive and like there's a lot of movement in it. Again, I don't know anything about this book other than the fact that it has something to do with Sri Lanka. I don't know if it's set in Sri Lanka, about Sri Lanka, just has a Sri Lankan main character or what it may be, but I know that it has something to do with Sri Lanka and I am really excited. I'm going to start with this book actually. This is going to be the first one that I read. Right off the bat, I'm giving this cover 5 out of 5 stars. I just think that it is so intriguing. I don't know what the creature or figure that's represented on the cover is. I don't know if that's part of Sri Lankan mythology, if it's some sort of deity. I'm not sure, but I'm intrigued and I think that it gives me a sense that this book is going to be something very colorful and lively and vibrant, just like the cover. The second book that I'm reading for this vlog is Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is another author that I've never read, but I saw this cover, I think I saw it on Instagram, and I was just like, wow. Just like the previous book, I'm giving this a 5 out of 5 stars for the cover and the aesthetics. I love this cover. I love the painterly quality of it. I love the movement. It gives me the sense of either wind or water or some sort of elemental vibe to it. And I think that the 2 faces on the cover are so beautiful. I don't know if the 2 faces are supposed to be twins or the same person looking at a reflection, or maybe it's a mother and a daughter. I have no idea. But I was so entranced by this cover. I think it is so stunning. This is one of those things where I would have this as a print in my home happily. Same for the last book, for 7 Moons. So 5 out of 5 stars for the cover of Cursed Daughters as well. And the final book that I have for this reading vlog is The Hounding by Shinobi Purvis. This is once again a book I saw while browsing Pango. Knew nothing about it, but I just saw the pups on the cover and I was like, yes, I love them. I need that book. I don't know what it's about. I don't know if it has dogs in it, but I'm drawn to the puppies on the cover. I sound like a broken record and it's obvious because I've already told you I've literally picked these books up because I like the cover. But again, I think that the art is stunning. I love the sort of pastoral painting aesthetic of it, and it gives me the vibe that it's going to be something, I don't know, set in the countryside or have to do with the countryside. I don't know if it's going to be more of like a cozy cottage type of story. The cover for this one might not be as dynamic or necessarily as exciting as the other 2. I think those are very energetic aesthetics, but this one, I don't know, there's just a calming sort of gentle vibe that I get from the cover art. And watch this be as like a absolute horror of a novel, but from what I'm seeing just of the art, I think that it's really lovely. I would also give this 5 out of 5 stars just for the dogs alone. I mean, how am I going to look at a cover that has multiple pups and not give it 5 out of 5 stars? It ain't happening. I'm really excited actually because I have never flown first class, but because it is a work trip and it's a very long flight, my work is covering me for first class seats, and I'm pretty sure that means I get one of those chairs that reclines fully so I can lay flat. That just sounds so insane to me, so we'll see how that goes. I'm sure I'll include it in the vlog. I am very excited for this conference and going to Hawaii. I just want to highlight for anyone watching this that I think if you are interested in Hawaii or if you're interested in going to Hawaii, then you should definitely be doing so having done research on the history of Hawaii and colonialism that has shaped a lot of the current struggles facing Hawaiian communities. If you're going to be entering that space, going to that land, then you should be doing so as someone who is responsible and respectful, and absolutely you should be taking some of the time out of your travels to do something that is engaged with local communities, to do something that is giving back, whether that's volunteering to clean up. They're doing some activities that are led or hosted by local communities. I think that Hawaii has become exploited in so many ways, whether that's for resources, whether that's for culture, whatever it may be. And so I am personally really excited because, as I said, I'm going for a conference for work, and it is one that is on Asian American Pacific Islander studies. And the conference has organized a bunch of really cool activities that are going to give us the chance to engage with land, engage with Aina, and to learn from local communities and to give back, do volunteer work, and just do some mindful, engaged, place-based work so that we're not just going there and being extractive or being exploitative and then taking some pretty pictures and bouncing without having done anything that is thoughtful. So I just implore you, if you're going to be going to Hawaii or really anywhere, do some research before you go. Think about the ways that you're going to be going and engaging, how your time and energy and money is going to be spent in this place, and how you can be there in a way that, again, is respectful, that is responsible, and that is contributing to the livelihood and abundance and endurance of that place and the people from this place. After I wrap up with the conference in Hawaii, I'm going to be hopping over to California to see some friends, and I don't really know how much recording I'll do when I'm there, so we'll see and play it by ear. And I feel like the vlog in general is going to be pretty loosey-goosey. It's not going to be really structured, so I hope you're down for more of a free-flowing type of vlog experience. All that said, I'm really looking forward to this vlog. I can't wait to take you guys with me and show you what I'm up to while I'm traveling, and I am obviously really stoked to read these 3 books because I just think that the covers are so stunning, and I'm really hoping that they're not just pretty faces and that I don't regret judging them by their covers and being a vain shopper. I have high hopes for all of them, so maybe I'll be very lucky and at the end of this vlog I'll come back and have 3 5-star reads. We will see. Wish me luck. I'm obviously so devastated to be separated from Lucy and Mimic and Blink for over a week. Those are my babies, but they will be in good hands. My parents are going to be watching Lucy, and I have a friend who used to live with me actually, and she's going to come and take care of the boys while I am gone. The next time you see me, I will probably be packing or already boarding the plane. So I hope you guys are as excited for the rest of this vlog as I am. I will see you soon. I can't really tell in the viewfinder, but the lighting is probably crazy, and I know I look a type of way. I just finished my first day in Hawaii. I landed like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours ago, and I walked around the area a little bit and sat by the beach and did some reading and did a little swimming, and I came back to my room and showered and thought that I would give you guys a quick halfway update on the 7 Moons of Molly Almeida. I managed to get it wet, I don't know how, but now it's wet and wrinkly, but I have been reading the 7 Moons of Molly Almeida. I started this, was it this morning? Yeah, I guess it was this morning. Time is so funky because I started it technically this morning, but there's the big time difference between Hawaii and when I was at home, so things are just kind of jumbled, but whatever. I think I kind of started it this morning, and I did a bunch of reading at the airport and on the plane and when I got to the beach. So I am already about halfway through, and it's not a super long book. I mean, it's not super short either. It's about 380 pages, so just under 400 pages, and I am at the 190 page mark. I think that for this vlog, I am just going to do halfway updates that are relatively quick and then do a full summary at the end because there are 3 books and I don't want the vlog to be like 8,000 hours long. As you already know, I started this book with no idea what it was about. The only real sort of context I had for it was that it had something to do with Sri Lanka. But now that I'm about halfway through, I have a better sense of that. And once I hit, I think about 100 pages, I did finally turn to the back and read the description. And just to say, this book, I mean, I didn't expect anything in particular because I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was not at all what I might have guessed if I were going to guess what this book was about. A political thriller, a gorgeous gay love story, and an altogether sprawling novel of tremendous imagination and verve, compulsively told. A bawdy, wisecracking satire set amid the murderous mayhem of the Sri Lankan Civil War. Colombo, 1990. Molly Almeida, war photographer, gambler, and closet queen, has woken up dead in what seems like a celestial visa office. His dismembered body is sinking in the serene Beira Lake, and he has no idea who killed him. But even in the afterlife, time is running out for Molly. He has 7 moons to contact the man and woman he loves most and lead them to the photographs that will rock Sri Lanka. Actually, hold on, let me undo this. Okay, I'm back. So this book, now that I'm about halfway through, I have a general idea of what it is about. So far, this is a dark comedy, political satire that has a whole lot to say about Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan politics and history. The main character is Molly, who is a queer photographer who photographs war and political turmoil and things like that, and he wakes up dead. He wakes up dead with no memory of how or why he died, and he is told by the afterlife clerk that he has 7 moons or 7 days to kind of get his house in order and prepare himself to move on to the light, reincarnate, etc., etc. I'll keep this part spoiler free and say that, man, I wish that I had a better understanding of Sri Lankan history and Sri Lankan political history, because I know he is saying so much about it. There's so much commentary that is happening that is honestly going right over my head because I don't really know and I'm not very familiar with the context. The tone of this, again, is satirical, it's dark comedy, it's funny, but in a very tragic and frustrated and angry kind of way. When I was in college, actually, I traveled to Sri Lanka and I visited there for about a month, I believe, and even with a month in Sri Lanka, I definitely only got a very surface level understanding of the politics and the history, and, you know, it was very like Sri Lanka 101, so I don't, again, have a very deep understanding of everything that is being poked at or laid bare or highlighted in this book so far, but I'm still really enjoying it and appreciating it. Now for some spoilers. Although Molly has been told that he has 7 days to get his house in order, and I think we've already burned through a few of those days at this point, he is spending most of his time trying to figure out how or why he died, or how and why he died and who killed him, what were the circumstances of his death, and 2, he is trying to lead the 2 people that he probably cared about most in his life. There's his partner, lover, love interest, Dee, and his best friend, a woman named Jackie, and the 3 of them were living together as roommates. There's a mysterious box that he had in life that he is trying to lead both Jackie and Dee to, and my suspicion is that, based on context clues and things that are happening, that the box contains photos he took when he was alive that are a political of nature. I don't know if they're damning to a particular politician or to a particular political party, but he is trying to guide Jackie and Dee to these pictures. And also, as this is happening, he and also Jackie and Dee are getting closer to figuring out why he died, how he died, what led to his death. I am really enjoying it. I think that it is very intelligent and snarky and pointed, and funny, and I've had a few heartfelt moments, and I feel like as we go on and as Jackie and Dee Dee discover more, and maybe as Molly starts to remember more of what happened to him, it's going to get more emotional. Or maybe not. Maybe it's not ever going to be a particularly outwardly emotional book and it's going to stick in the comedic satire, dark humor area. Either way, I'm having a good time and I'm so glad I picked this up because I definitely don't read enough Sri Lankan literature. I mean, I think that this is only the first or second book. There was a collection of short stories I think I read a few years ago that was by a Sri Lankan author, but yeah, I don't read very often from Sri Lanka. So I'm very happy that this cover caught my eye and that so far it is an excellent read. So I'm gonna do a little bit more reading and then I have to catch up on a little bit of work before I go to sleep. I might go to sleep before midnight tonight, which is crazy for me. I usually sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night. I'm not a big sleeper and I tend to stay up very late and wake up earlier than I should. But all that to say, I'm very excited and I'm gonna try and get a good amount of sleep because tomorrow we have one of the place-based, land-based, community engaged activities that I'm really excited for. So the organization that's going to be taking us out to this island is called Mauliola Kei, and they are described as a holistic health nonprofit organization based at the historic tidal island of Kei that inspires participants to transformative healing through an ocean-focused therapy for collective mental health and environmental justice. Our program is rooted in indigenous Hawaiian knowledge that reconnects individuals via Wa, Hawaiian outrigger canoe, and Kai, ocean. Mo'olelo ancestral stories of Kehi, a sacred area with a legacy of navigation, shark riding, and healing. I mean, that all just sounds so incredible, and honestly, walking around the resort today, it's just so insane the way you can come to a place, oh God, with so much magic and so much history and culture and really not engage with any of it. Literally just come to a resort and sit at a beach and sip your mocktails and never think about the place you're at or what it means to be granted access to the space. I don't know. I could go on about indigenous knowledge and indigenous stewardship of land forever and ever and ever. It's something I'm really passionate about and I think about all the time. It makes me emotional every time I think about it. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. I haven't been to Hawaii in over 10 years and again, the fact that I get to come here and do some of these incredible activities, I'm very grateful. Anyway, I'm gonna get to my reading, to my work. I still have a bunch of stuff I want to do and get unpacked, so I will do all of that and I will see you in the next check-in, or I will see you when I vlog tomorrow. Because of these oblong shaped spines.
Very ticklish.
But you can move all these spines individually.
Yeah, he's moving it now.
Like this.
I feel it. Oh.
I'm gonna give my finger a hug.
Okay.
Oh! So I'm just hopping on really quick before I get ready to head out for some conference stuff. I am almost done with this book. I think I only have, let me see. Yeah, I think I only have like 40-ish pages left, and I am still really enjoying it. I will say I feel like this might be a book that you have to be in a certain reading mood to enjoy if you are a mood reader, because it is definitely very stylized, and it's very satirical. So if you're not in the mood for that, I don't know that this is like the book that I would scream at you to pick up, but I'll give more of my thoughts once I'm fully done with it. But for sure I am very much enjoying it. I don't know that it's the book that I should have brought for some easy beach reads, because it is one that I feel like I do have to be pretty present for, especially because it refers to a lot of things specific to Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan history and politics that I don't always know what they're talking about, so I'll stop and look it up and cross-reference and things like that. So it's not the easiest book for just like a casual beach read, but all that said, doesn't matter. The book itself is in my opinion really great. I will come back once I am done and give more coherent thoughts, but right now I'm sitting in bed before I have to get ready. I'm squeezing in a bit more reading, and also I'm just sitting here. I'm in a hotel room, I'm not on the beach or anything, but I'm just loving the way the lighting is changing and filtering in from the mountains. I've been jet lagged every single day. I can't even tell if I'm in frame or not, so this might be like a headless video, but like I was saying, I haven't even really tried to get over the jet lag. I've just been going to sleep really early and waking up at like 3 or 4 a.m. and just doing some work that I have to do and reading, and I've honestly been loving that because I can just sit here, and from my hotel room I'm overlooking some of the mountains and where the sun comes up, so I just sit here and let the sun slowly rise over and the light filters in. It's just been a really quiet, lovely way to start every morning. I am sad it is my last full day. I will be leaving tomorrow, so I think that maybe tomorrow morning I'll walk over to the beach in the morning and just have a last little beach time. I'm not a big beach person. I don't like sitting in the sun. I actually don't enjoy being in the sun very much, which is funny for someone who loves outdoor activities. I love hiking, I love gardening, I love just being outside, but I don't actually like the sun. My favorite day to be outside is when it's cloudy and cool, actually. So low 60s with lots of clouds, that's my jam. But I've been obviously I'm here, I'm going to enjoy the beach. What was I even saying? I started rambling. Yeah, so it's my last full day. Last night I got to go to dinner with some of the community organizers and community leaders in this area, and I was just talking to them and listening to their stories, and it's just really incredible to hear about the ways that some people are so deeply plugged into community. I think even people, at least back at home for me, even people who talk about community engagement and being engaged aren't actually doing that much in the community. And that's not to say that they don't care or anything like that, but I think a lot of times people are just so wrapped up in the day-to-day of their own lives that volunteering or organizing or mutual aid or physically putting your body out there for things like restoration projects, that's just not stuff that's on a lot of people's regular rotation of activities. And for these folks, it really is the bread and butter of their identity and what keeps them going, and I just think they're so cool and so rad and so inspirational. So I'm so glad that I got to hang out with them yesterday. I took some clips. I was working and volunteering, so I didn't do a whole lot of filming, obviously. It was such a wonderful time. I think there's something really powerful and sacred about putting your sweat into a land for the betterment of the land, which obviously in turn comes back and is for the betterment of yourself and people and community. So I'm just having a grand old time here, and to top it off, I've been reading, like I said, this book and really enjoying it. Yeah, so I will see you for my final thoughts in just a bit.
All white. Looking good, looking good. Oh, sorry. You want to try to get the water level. In 10 minutes, we'll start taking some bets.
No, I'm squeezing too. Hi.
Alright, I think I'm in frame. So today is my last full day in Hawaii. It is the afternoon and I just got back from one of the events that was organized by the conference, which was going to volunteer and help restore / build taro fields, traditional Hawaiian taro fields called loai. Lo'i? Oh, I can't remember now. I think it's loai. No, it's lo'i. So we went out there, a group of us, and it was just, oh God, it's just the work that makes my heart feel so full. I am a huge proponent of connecting with land and nature and maintaining and developing a relationship with the land that you are on, whether that is just by, you know, spending time outside, being barefoot, going to collect garbage, growing your own food. I just think that when you have a relationship with land, it is crazy what that does for your perspective, for your understanding of the potential for reciprocity in your relationship with the natural world and your investment in maintaining and protecting natural places. And I think that Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous communities are really at the forefront of championing that kind of relationship with land. I just have so much respect for Indigenous stewardship of the world. So I was just, my heart was so full being there and being able to have that experience. It was led by an incredible community organizer who does teaching at charter schools and brings his students out to build these taro terraces. Okay, that was incredibly rude. My battery died, so I don't know where I left off, but I was basically saying, and he's just an incredible guy. He is just such a champion for the Hawaiian people and Hawaiian culture. He chained himself to the gate at a mountain to keep an observation tower from being built. He's just one of those people that you can't help but admire and has done so much for his community. So all that to say, I had such an incredible time. They took us to these fields, these terraces. We took off our shoes, we rolled up our pants, and we were stomping through the mud. I'm so sad that my time in Hawaii is coming to an end. All that said, I just want to say I am almost done with the 7 Moods of Maali Almeida, and I've been having a good time with this book, and I'll save my full thoughts for later, but there was a line towards the end, very close to the end, that made me so unexpectedly emotional. So I was kind of thinking that this was generally dark comedy, satire. I wasn't expecting that emotional hit towards the end. I'll probably read you guys the passage in the final check-in, and I keep looking at my fingers because I still have mud under my nails from the taro fields, and I just, it's so satisfying to end the day with mud under your nails. I love it. Tomorrow around noon is my flight to San Diego, so I think maybe I'll wake up early and try to do like a sunrise swim before all the people are out there. But yeah, I'm just having such a great time. I know that this is probably a very different vlog from the one that I did last month, so I hope that you don't mind this month that it's a bit different. I think that in the future, if I have months where I have less going on, it'll be more like the traditional vlog like I did with my romantasy one. But yeah, I'm doing fun stuff, so I want to share. I want to show you the stuff that I'm doing and the things that are feeding my soul. Right now, I am going to go do a whale watching trip. So I'm a big whale fan, if you haven't been able to tell by the hat that I've been probably wearing in parts of this vlog. And I've done dedicated whale watching trips international dedicated whale watching trips with my mom because I'm just a huge lover of whales. I've been to Mexico, I've been to Canada, I've gone whale watching in Iceland. But yeah, I've specifically organized trips just to go whale watching. So this is, you know, it's like I have to go obviously. So wish me luck. We'll see. It's towards the end of the migration season here in Hawaii for the humpback, so we might not really see anything. But fingers crossed, maybe I will. Yeah, I will check back in with you later. So today is the day I am leaving beautiful Hawaii. I wish that I had scheduled more time after my conference to be here, to spend more time in other areas of this island that I'm on. We will see if I ever end up having the chance to come back to Hawaii. I did end up yesterday finishing The 7 Moons of Maali Almeida, and I really enjoyed this book. I will keep my thoughts short because again, I'll do like a full wrap up once I'm home. But I do have a feeling that this is a book that I probably didn't get the most out of and will want to do a reread at some point. Partially because I'm pretty sure I've already said this earlier in the vlog, but it has a lot of references to things politically and historically and societally within Sri Lanka that I think that I would like to read when I am in a place where I can kind of sit and research while I'm reading it. But because I was reading it like at the beach or on the go or whatever, I don't think I got to have the full experience that I would have wanted. But that all that aside, that's nothing to do with the book. That's just like the way I got to interact with it this time. But I really enjoyed the book. I will give you my full thoughts when I am back. But right now I am reading Cursed Daughters. I just started this and I read like the prologue and maybe half of chapter 1, and so far I am loving it. I ended up getting this book called Mapping Abundance for a Planetary... why am I doing this so far away? I hope you can you see this? So this is Mapping Abundance for a Planetary Future, and it is a book by Candice Fujikane, who was the organizer of the first activity I did here when we went to the reef and I showed you all of the incredible marine creatures and the reef. She was talking about how due to climate change and rising sea waters, it is most likely that Waikiki will end up being underwater. And she was saying, you know, that might seem horrific, but if you think about it, Waikiki is just going to become a reef and it's going to provide the shelter and environment needed for indigenous Hawaiian fish to come back and thrive again. And she was saying how when she thinks about mapping abundance for planetary future, it's not just abundance for people. That can lead to new environments for other animals, and I just thought that was so beautiful that abundance is human-centric. So I had to pick up her book, and I actually ended up being able to pick up this copy for free. But I did order I forgot what the book's called. I can't remember the titles exactly, but I'll put them on the screen. I think one was From a Native Daughter. The other one was something like eco literature, like indigenous eco literature. Again, I'll put it on the screen. I ordered those two. I think they might take a bit to get to me, and actually it's perfect timing because next month is AAPI month, I'm pretty sure. So maybe I will get to read those for that. Anyway, I picked up a few new books. I started Cursed Daughters. I finished 7 Moons of Maali Almeida, and I need to pack because I'm supposed to be getting out of here in like 30 minutes and I'm fully unprepared. Probably the next time you'll see me is when I'm at the airport or perhaps when I've landed in San Diego. All right, I will see you later. Bye. do my halfway update. I gotta do my halfway update. Can I do that? Is that okay? Okay, so I am at my friend's house in San Diego and I wanted to pop in to do a quick halfway update on the Cursed Daughters. I'm gonna keep it kind of quiet because my friend is sleeping in the next room and I don't want to wake her because she's kind of sickies. I am about almost exactly halfway through the Cursed Daughters and I've been flying through this. It's a lot of fun. Again, I went into it not knowing what it's about and I guessed, I think in my other video I guessed that it probably had daughters in it, and listen, I wasn't wrong. The book more or less follows the women, multiple generations of women in this one family after one of the women generations ago was cursed to essentially be unlucky in love and life, and we are seeing how different women experience that in their lives. Because of the multi-generational structure of this, there's not really a protagonist or one main narrator, but when the book opens we are following a young woman named Ibun after her cousin Monife has drowned herself, and Ibun ends up having a child. She has a daughter who is the exact replica of Monife, and people, including her aunt, are suspecting that she is the reincarnation of this cousin who has just passed. We are jumping back and forth in time to the sort of distant past when the curse first happened to more present day. There's multiple times, there's multiple narrators, but so far I'm really enjoying it. I'm very invested in all of the different women and seeing how the curse is affecting them, and also kind of like hoping that they don't get affected by this curse, whether or not there actually is a supernatural element or whether it's just the manifestation of choices that these women are making. I will say it's funny because so the main aspect of the curse is that they'll never be able to keep a man. They'll never be lucky in love. A man will never stay with them. And there are just these, these radiant, exuberant women, and they're so focused on how they're going to keep these different men in their homes, in their lives. I'm just like, girl, you don't need him. Just let him go. Like, he is not worth all the stress and strife, but obviously that's not how they feel. I don't think I have a favorite character yet. The women are all interesting and different. There's Munife, like I said, who is the cousin who has drowned herself at the beginning of this book. There is Ibun, who is Munife's younger cousin, and Inai, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. I haven't been listening to the audiobook, but Inai, who is Ibun's daughter. It's always interesting when you start a book knowing that a certain character is going to die. Like, for example, the character whose story I'm most invested in at the moment is Munife, but I know, based on how the book starts, that she is going to end up drowning herself. So, that's always an interesting framing to work with, but I don't know the fates or histories of either of the other women or the other characters that are sprinkled in, so there is still an aspect of mystery in it. But so far I would say that the insides are just as enjoyable as the cover is beautiful, but we will see. I'll finish up this book probably, most likely, like on the flight back to my place after I leave my friends. I will end up finishing it and I will report back once I get back home, and it'll be just like the 7 Moons of Mali. Well, I'll probably, I don't know, I'll either splice it in or I'll just do all of the final reviews at the end. I'll see what makes sense. I'm really sad that my trip is almost over. I'll be headed back home tomorrow, but I'm very, very excited to see Lucy and Mimic and Blink. So, yeah. am back in the usual setup. I have returned from my trip and am back at home. I had such a good time in Hawaii and with my friend in San Diego, but I am back and I thought that I would hop on here to give a 3/4 update for The Hounding. This is the last book that I'm reading for this vlog and I'm about 75% of the way through. I thought that I might just finish this book and come back for the final review, but I think that I'm at a point where there are several interwoven lines of tension and potentials for where the climax is going to take us. So I thought that I'd just come on here and give my thoughts because then we could see if any of my predictions or fears come true. Also, I'm so sorry. I know the format of this vlog is going to be all over the place. It's not really structured in the same way that my previous vlog was, because when I was traveling in Hawaii and like with my friend, it was just, I wasn't going to spend a whole hour sitting there recording. I wanted to be present in the place I was in, and obviously I wanted to spend time with my friends and not hide in a room and record my video thoughts. So it's going to be all over the place. It's going to be kind of wonky, but hopefully you guys give me some grace and are okay with this slightly less structured format for this month's vlog. I had originally said, I think a couple times, that I planned to give my final thoughts and kind of splice them into earlier points in the video for the other two books, but actually I changed my mind. I think what I'm going to do is once I finish The Hounding, I'm going to sit down and give you my final thoughts and final reviews for all 3 books, and I'll just keep them at the end of the video so you can check it out all at once instead of me kind of splicing and dicing and putting things at earlier points in the video. I think it'll make sense that way, and it's already so unstructured that why bother. And also, can we take a moment to appreciate this insanely incredible horse sweater that my friend got me for my birthday? Thank you, Bunny. I love it. It is so warm and cozy, and this is probably like the last week or 2 weeks that I can wear this because it is warming up where I am, even though it's still pretty chilly in the mornings, but during the day it's warm enough that I'm probably not going to be able to wear this for very much longer. Alright, so The Hounding. I went into this book, again, as with the others, not knowing what it's about, and I think that in my TBR video I'd said that maybe it has something to do with dogs because it's called The Hounding and there are dogs on the cover, and let me tell you, there are dogs in the story, but it was completely not the way that I thought it was going to happen. I don't know, I thought there might be some pups in here, or you might have some lessons around dogs, like Old Yeller or something like that, but what I was not expecting was for this to be a Scarlet Letter, witch hunt, dog demon possession, transformation group think literary thriller of a book. The Crucible meets the virgin suicides in this haunting debut about 5 sisters in a small village in 18th century England whose neighbors are convinced they're turning into dogs. So this story follows 5 orphan sisters who are, a little strange and they live with their grandfather, and the main conflict is around this growing fear and suspicion from the townsfolk that these girls are turning into dogs and possessed by demons. Spoiler-free stuff. I think that the writing is really effective and very excellent. The prose is restrained but still really impactful and has these really effective lyrical moments, and there's just this really uncomfortable, insidious, tense atmosphere that is being built up really well. You start off this book already knowing something is wrong. Actually, I'll read you the first few lines. I don't know if you would consider this a spoiler, but it's literally the first line of the book, so I'm just gonna read it. The girls, the infernal heat, a fresh dead body. So yeah, that's the first line of the book. So you already go into it knowing that something is about to go down, something violent, something dark. And as you're reading the book, you are, like I said, feeling this tension, this dark, oppressive kind of atmosphere, and you're waiting for the shoe to drop. Aside from the lovely writing, I'm really enjoying the characters and the diversity of characters in terms of psychology and the emotional touch points each of the characters represent. It's a small 18th century town in England. There's not a whole lot of diversity in terms of racial or sexuality, but yeah, in terms of the psychology of the characters, I'm really enjoying all of them. I mean, I hate some of them, but I am enjoying the exploration of the characters. There's several themes so far woven throughout the story. There's groupthink, the power of suspicion and stories, how lies take a life of their own, sexism, toxic masculinity. And very importantly, the book so far has been exploring how toxic masculinity is not just destructive and dangerous to girls and women, but to the goodness of men. I'll talk a bit more about the characters. We have the 5 sisters who I already mentioned. There's Anne, Elizabeth, Hester, Grace, and who's the last one? Mary, that's the one. So it's Anne, Elizabeth, Mary, Grace, Hester. So those are the 5 sisters, and they are extremely close. They're orphans, and they are currently living with their grandfather. Their grandmother has recently passed, and they have their own very intimate circle and ways of communicating, and for outsiders looking in, they just seem a little bit strange. The girls live with their grandfather Joseph, who is old and his eyesight has mostly failed him. He can still see some shapes, but more or less he is legally blind. He cares about his granddaughters a lot. I think that his relationship with his granddaughters is really touching. He's so concerned and loving and wants the best for them and wants to do his best for them, but obviously he's sort of limited by his age and his health. He is cared for by his granddaughters and his 2 maids, but yeah, you can just tell that there is a lot of warmth and love between him and his family. There's another character named Thomas, who is a hired hand who's come from outside of town to help Joseph, the grandfather, around the farm. There's another character, Thomas, who I can't remember exactly how old he is, but I think he's a teenager, and he is a hired hand who has come from out of town to help Joseph, the grandfather, on his farm. He seems pretty steadfast and kind, and actually ends up developing feelings for one of the sisters, but I'll go more into that in the spoiler section. There's another character who I'm so worried about, and his name is Robin. He is a young boy, or a young teen, I think. I'm not exactly sure of his age either, but he's still young, and he is a gentle, animal-loving, soft-hearted, kind-hearted boy who doesn't even want to eat meat. He is trying to survive in this town of hard men by hiding his kindness and trying to fit in with the other men and boys who are, crueler or harsher, or who just adhere more to this domineering, violent expectation of manhood. There's another character in this book whom I absolutely despise, and his name is Pete Darling. Pete is one of the worst kinds of man. Pete, you better put on your running shoes, because when I catch you... In town, Pete is the ferryman. He has a ferry and he takes people back and forth across the water for a fee. He's horrific. He's just absolutely horrific. He embodies the man who believes he is owed something from everyone. He believes that he is righteous and godly and special, and that people should care about him and what he thinks and fawn over him. He explicitly says that he hates things that are weaker than him, whether that is soft men or women or animals. He has a violent hatred towards them. But I'm going to read you a description. It's pretty early on in the book before anything really happens, but it's a description of Pete, and this is just the most terrifying kind of man, I think. Horrific. I'm not going to put this in the spoiler section because I don't think it's really spoiling anything significant, but if you don't want to hear anything, then you can skip this part, but I am going to read you a bit, and I think it's pretty safe in terms of spoilers. There was no solution for the hatred which tormented him every day. He hated anything weaker than him. Women, children, sometimes even animals. Soft men troubled him too. But really, it was women he hated the most. He hated how slow they were, how physically incapable, how stupid. He hated their incompleteness, their cunning, and their lust. He saw the way they looked at him. They tempted him into uncleanness. Something terrible happened to him in the presence of such women. A rage descended, a desire to punish. In his heart, he knew that he, Pete Darling, was the greatest hater of all. Is that not a terrifying, terrifying man? He's just like, I hate women, I hate children, I hate things weaker than me, and it drives me to feelings of violence. There's another character whose POV we get in this book, and her name is Temperance. She is a woman who generally seems like a kind person. She discourages Pete, she disagrees with Pete. She does what she can to try to protect the girls and to stamp down the stories that are starting to circulate about them being these strange creatures that turn into dogs. Okay, so spoiler section here on out. I am going to go into some more details, so please skip if you don't want spoilers. Anyone reading even a little critically will know right from the beginning that Pete is messed up, and this man should not be trusted really with anybody. As I said, he takes people back and forth across the water on his little ferry, and he is taking the 5 girls across at one point, and he is questioning them and trying to talk to them, and they're being pretty aloof. They are not really interested in engaging with him, and this infuriates him. The fact that they're not giving him the time of day, and the fact that they're not really fawning over him or recognizing his greatness, he gets angry, and he's rowing essentially, and he stops punting, and he relishes in the fact that for a moment he can take control of their lives or their fates and refuse to take them across. They deny him even this though, because Anne, the oldest, just jumps in the water and she's like, whatever, I'm just walking across. And that further infuriates Pete. Now, it's not explicitly stated, but there's a point in the book where it is suggested that Anne and Elizabeth, who I think are the two oldest of the girls, are assaulted by Pete. He has been growing increasingly more obsessed with them and angrier, and there's a point at which the gentle boy that I talked about, Robin, he is walking home and he comes across the girls, they part ways, and later he hears sounds that he thinks might be barking or sound like dogs, and he goes to investigate and he sees Pete kind of roughed up and walking from the direction that the girls had been going, and it's insinuated that he has attacked them in some shape or form. Not long after, Pete starts to spread rumors that he has seen the girls transforming into dogs, that there's something evil about them, that there's something wrong with them, and this rumor starts to spread and gain traction as other people think that they've seen things. The story starts taking a life of its own. I feel like the most obvious connection and the first assumption I made reading a bit further is that the dead body that's mentioned in the first line, I'm assuming that is probably going to end up being Pete. I think there's going to be another sort of altercation between the girls and him, and they might kill him. I want so badly to protect these girls, to protect them from the suspicions of others, the hatred of these villagers, and by men specifically. Tied to the girls, I'm also so nervous about the grandfather because he's caught onto these rumors and he is, flabbergasted, right? He's like, my girls are good girls, like they're not turning into dogs, like I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm afraid that the stress of this is gonna, kill him or something like that. And there's just so much love between him and his grandchildren. You can tell that they treasure and are treasured by each other. So I don't want anything to happen to him, so I'm worried about that. I mentioned that toxic masculinity doesn't just hurt girls and women, it is also so detrimental to boys and just men, and I think that they are two really good examples of that. Thomas, so far, he's been honest and kind, and he has defended the girls when other boys have questioned them or talked about them, and he has also developed feelings for Anne, which I believe are reciprocated. They're not in a relationship necessarily at this point, but they have feelings for each other, and at the point of the book where I'm at, the other girls, the other sisters, are also opening up to him. But he's also starting to experience certain seeds of doubt about the girls and them turning into dogs, because there's a moment when he thinks he's seen something, and also the girls are acting strangely, like they are barking and howling at certain points in the book, and it's not really clear why they're doing it. It's not obvious if they are acting, if they're just playing around or messing around, but they are doing certain dog-like behaviors. And seeing all of this and hearing all the rumors, I think Thomas is starting to get a little confused. So I'm afraid that either he'll turn on them, or I'm afraid that he's going to try to defend them against Pete or something and he'll get hurt. I'm not sure, but I'm worried about Thomas as well, because so far I like him and I think that he, cares about the girls and is trying to do his best by them. But yeah, I can see how that's gonna potentially go off the rails. I'm also so worried about sweet little Robin. He's such a prime example of good, sweet boys who's stamped down that side of them in order to fit in with these traditional ideas of masculinity. He's a sweet boy who feels like he has to hide his true self in order to survive around men, and we've seen multiple times the struggle he goes through as he's fighting the urge to just go along with the group, to hide in plain sight, to blend in. I mentioned that he really loves animals and is really gentle towards animals, and there's a scene where he's gone to a bar, I believe, and the men have caught a badger, like a wild badger, and they're having a game of letting their dogs attack it and essentially like slowly kill this animal, and Robin hates it. He hates it, but he pretends to be enjoying it or to go along with it so that other people don't suspect that he's different. I deeply fear that scene with the badger is foreshadowing for a scene in the future where maybe the girls are being attacked or the girls are being, bullied or harmed, and he, out of fear for himself, just kind of goes along with it and doesn't stand up for them or stand against the people. Actually, it's extra heartbreaking because there was a chance that he could have kept Anne and Elizabeth from being attacked by Pete. The day that he experienced that whole badger incident is the day that he was going home and ran into those two girls. And his initial instinct, I think the goodness in him, wants to reach out and offer to take them home so that they're safe. But because he's had this really sort of chafing and harrowing experience where his own goodness and his own self is really frustrated and tampered, he instead acts out the way he thinks that other men or other boys would act out, and he sort of berates them for walking by themselves at night and tells them it's not safe, but he doesn't offer to take them home the way he instinctually wants to. And you can tell that this is out of character for Robin because both Anne and Elizabeth, who are fond of him are taken aback at the way that he speaks to them. And yeah, it's just, God, what could have been, right? Because if he had walked them home, then Pete most likely would not have attacked him in whatever way he's attacked them. Then later on, he and Thomas are amongst a group of boys who are gossiping about the girls and speaking of them, suspecting that they're possessed or strange creatures. And once again, Robin is mulling over how, you know, honestly, it'd be so easy for me to just agree with them and just go along with it. Even if I don't actually agree, I don't want them to suspect me or think weirdly of me. And it's only because Thomas, who is with them, he speaks up and says the girls are normal, like stop being weird about this. That's the only reason that Robin doesn't end up agreeing with the other boys. But you know, if Thomas wasn't there, then Robin probably would have just done what he's always done and gone along with the group, which is really frustrating and heartbreaking. So yeah, I'm really nervous about Robin because I see how he could be such a great, wonderful, kind, gentle, beautiful hearted man as he grows up, but the way he's going now, I can see the ways that he's going to kill the goodest parts of himself in order to survive in this environment. And I fear so badly. I hope that what happens is he does find his feet and he does find his voice and he ends up standing up for the girls. But again, what does that mean? If he does do that, is he going to be attacked? Is he going to be in trouble? I just don't know. There's so many ways that a lot of these things could go, and so the book has me sort of on the edge of my seat, and like I said, I only have like 25% of the book left, and I'm scared. So yeah, once I finish this book, I will come back and give my final thoughts for all three of the books, probably in the order that I read them. So I'll start with Seven Moons, I'll do Cursed Daughters, and then I'll do this. And I don't know how long that's going to take me. Honestly, I could finish this today, but I might try and take it a little bit slow. So you might see some more behind the scenes, or I might just be switching right after this to the final thoughts. But either way, I will be back soon, and I will let you know what I think about all the books that I have read for this vlog, which I feel like, once again, is going to end up being much longer than I intended.
Hello. So it's a really nice day out. It definitely feels like spring. It's, I think, like 60 degrees today and nice and sunny, so Udo and I are out on a little adventure. Every time I come out and ride, I just don't know how I spent so much of my riding career only riding inside rings. It's just so it's so freeing and expansive to be on a horse outside. I don't know, it's in my personal opinion, 10 out of 10 would recommend. Absolutely love it. There's usually a bunch of ducks. Oh, there they are. So I personally hate riding in the summer because it's always hot and humid and sticky and there's bugs everywhere and it's just like so uncomfortable. But I know that hot weather is coming for us. I'm trying to enjoy this mild weather as much as I can. I would rather, 10 out of 10 times, I would rather be riding outside in the cold, in the snow, than in a really hot, sticky, buggy summer day. Hi, Papa. What a handsome man. This is Boomer. She's one of the barn cats and she's very old and very sweet and I love her so much. I always make sure to come and sit with her in the little shed she lives in. Cookie, what are you doing here? This is Boom's place. What are you doing here, Cookie? That's Cookie. She reminds me of Lucy because she's a calico and so fat. Lucy used to be really fat when she was a barn cat. She's very sweet, and if my landlord would let me, I would absolutely take her home because she's old, and the barn owner was saying that if they could find a good home for her, they'd be happy to let her go, but unfortunately my pet quota is full.
Alright, I'm now back and it is time to wrap this up with my final thoughts. I was originally planning to take my final thoughts on each book and sort of splice them back into earlier points in the vlog, but I actually think that might be a little too confusing or a little weird to watch. So what I'm going to do actually is give my final thoughts on all three of the books now and just have them all at the ending of the video. I hope that's not too jarring or weird, but if you've forgotten some of my thoughts on the first two books, Seven Moons and Cursed Daughters, feel free to just scrub back and see what I said earlier. Also, apologies if my audio picks up the air conditioning. We've been having some whack weather. It was like 60 degrees yesterday and today it's almost 90. It's just jumping back and forth, and so right now I have the air conditioning running, so if you hear it, sorry about that. It's what I have to do so I'm not sweating to death on camera. So I'm going to start with my final thoughts on the first book that I read for this vlog, The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida. As a refresher, earlier in this video I said that I was absolutely just drawn to the cover of this book. I locked in on Pango because I saw this and I just love the colors. It's so vibrant and a little chaotic, and it just has this sense of life to it that I was really, really interested in. I didn't know if this art was depicting a particular figure or deity or something from mythology, but I think it's just so freaking cool. So yes, I gave the cover a 5 out of 5, easy. Art, love it, incredible, delightful, beautiful. Book in Hawaii, I was packing up and I had said that I did finish the book and was just giving a brief overview, but I think that the cover translated really well into the story. The story itself is really colorful and it's really vibrant. It's full of interesting creatures and figures, and I think that it is also a bit chaotic. I don't know that this is going to be a book that's going to be for everyone, or at least I think that certain people will have to be in a particular mood to want to read this. It's not a really straightforward story. It's told in second person, it's political satire, it's dark humor. It has a very particular voice and tone to it that I know that some people might not jive with. I think that it's definitely a book that wants you to engage with it and be really focused. I feel like I personally may have done this book a bit of a disservice reading it while I was on the move, while I was on a work trip, and, you know, I was busy. That's not to say I didn't enjoy it. I really loved the book. I just think that I may have been able to absorb some of the commentary or some of the nuances and subtext a bit more if I was reading it in a place where I could read and simultaneously do some research or something like that. I'm going to go into the spoiler section now, so spoilers from here on out until I say otherwise. To quickly summarize, I think the last time I gave a proper update, I was saying that this book is about dead photographer named Mali Almeida who wakes up dead, and he's trying to guide his best friend Jackie and his lover sort of boyfriend Dee into finding out the circumstances of his death, figuring out who killed him, why they killed him, and also helping them find a box of photographs that he took that reveal some of the atrocities committed during the Sri Lankan Civil War. In the end, Mali is able to, within the 7 moons that he's been given in terms of time, he's able to communicate and connect with Jackie and get the photos that he took published. He watches both Jackie and Dee move on from his death. Dee finds another partner and Jackie also moves on. I won't get too granular into it, but we do find out who killed Mali and why, and I was surprised because it wasn't actually because of his photographs or his political work. It was more because of his queerness and his involvement with Dee, and so that was obviously very heartbreaking. This book had the kind of ending that I really enjoy, where it is bittersweet in that not everything is very neatly resolved. We have some sort of resolution, but there are things that just can't be prettily tied off at the end of a life or at the end of a book, and so I thought that this was really well done. You know, Dee and Mali never get to reconcile. I think the last conversation that they actually had wasn't particularly positive. Jackie moves on, and I don't know if she ever really gets to realize the extent of Mali's affection for her, because she at multiple points was romantically interested in Mali and he rejected her, but I don't know if she really got to feel how much he really did care for her, even if it wasn't in a romantic sense. The photos I mentioned do get published, and there is like some talk about it. There's a bit of outrage, but it's not like it saves thousands of lives. It's not like these photos change the world or bring about world peace. There's so much suffering that happens. There's so much that's gone, you know, unresolved. There's so many relationships that are never mended, and it's kind of like, all right, like, what was the point of all that? You might be wondering, so was it all worth it? What was that for? And at the end of this book, Mali is thinking about Jackie and thinking about Dee and thinking about his time, and there's a little passage that I think is really poignant and speaks to those uncertainties. You saw Dee's face and how different it was from his father's, and you saw him on a plane landing somewhere sunny, and you pictured him purifying poisoned wells, and you daydreamed of him smiling. You imagined him lending his life to some pointless cause just like you had, and it made you happy. We must all find pointless causes to live for, or why bother with breath? Because, on reflection, once you have seen your own face and recognized the color of your eyes, tasted the air and smelled the soil, drunk from the purest fountains and the dirtiest wells, that is the kindest thing you can say about life. It's not nothing. I think that's probably my favorite passage from this book. So I'll end the spoiler section there, and I will say that I think this is a really special book. It's a story that's really entrenched in a place that I think that not a lot of people read about very often. I thought that the story was bold and experimental. I thought that it played with structure. I thought the characters are really complicated, and it's definitely a book that I think I would want to reread sometime in the future when, like I said, I have the time or I'm in a place where I can really kind of sit down and dedicate a lot of energy and just mind power to the book. I would recommend this to anyone who's looking for some political satire or dark commentary, or who's interested in a book that feels sort of like Sri Lankan history meets Beetlejuice. It's a really great time, and like I said, I don't think this will be the book for everyone at every point in their lives or in their mood reading experience. My ratings are always fluid, but for now I'm going to give this book a hearty 4 stars and say that I had a great time, I loved it, and I am so glad that I judged this book by its cover. It is absolutely not just a pretty face, and it was so very much worth the read. Also, I just think the color coordination of my tabs to the cover is so satisfying. So I just want everyone to take a second to appreciate that. Now for my final thoughts on Cursed Daughters. Again, as a refresher, this cover is a 5 out of 5 for me. As I said earlier, I think that it's just so beautiful. I love the use of colors. I love the sort of painterly quality about it and the sense of movement, and I think I said in the intro that it reminded me of elements or like water or air, and that was right. Having read the story too, I see the significance of having these two faces the way that they are drawn like this. So I think that that's also really clever and alluded to stuff that obviously I wasn't able to pick up on at the time, but I appreciate now having read the story. Yeah, 5 stars easy for the cover. And to quickly summarize the story, this book follows 3 main characters. We have Ebun and Monife, who are cousins, and Enii, who is Ebun's daughter and the person who many people consider to be Monife's reincarnation. At the beginning of this book, and you can read this right in the dust jacket cover, so I don't consider it a spoiler, it's like the first thing that happens. So with that information, when you look at this cover, you have an idea of what this is representing. This is, I'm assuming, Enii, and this is Monife, and she is more blue and sort of, you know, integrated into the blue colors because she has drowned, and they look alike. It looks like a mirror image because people suspect again that she is her reincarnation. The women in this family for many generations have been cursed to basically be unlucky in love and family. They were cursed generations ago to never be able to keep a man that they love. No man will stay with them, and that is sort of the burden that every woman in this family line has to deal with. First of all, Oyinkan's writing is compulsively readable in my opinion. This book was so easy to get through. I flew through it, and I think it's like almost 400 pages, like 350 pages, and the pages were flying by. I thought that the multiple point of views were done so clearly and didn't confuse me at all, even though again there are multiple points of views and we're jumping back and forth in time. It felt very intentional, and it felt done in a way that really moved the story forward. I was invested in all 3 of the main women, Ebun, Monife, and Nii. I want to know how all of their stories turned out. And although I was talking about reincarnation and curses and things like that, this isn't a fantasy book. It has elements of magical realism that people could easily argue aren't things that are actually happening, that the curse isn't even real, it's just manifestations of people's choices or guilt. So I definitely think that there are a lot of strong elements in this book, but I personally felt like it fell short, or a little short of its potential for me. And I think that a lot of that is just going to be down to personal taste. I can easily absolutely see why this would be someone's book of the year, or why someone might give this 5 stars. There were just certain things that I think are specific to my preferences or my interests that kept this from being a absolute home run book for me. One thing I will say that is I think that some of the plot points, especially towards the end, were pretty predictable, and I don't really know that that's something that I should consider a negative, because they might not necessarily even have been there to be shocking, but I think that the predictable nature of some of the reveals towards the end, yeah, it just felt a bit flat. But I think probably the main thing for me is that I want to see more about the women. I want to dive more deeply into their psyches and the interpersonal relationships that they had with each other and the other women in their family. But so much of the book was about, you know, the curse and the men that are sort of rotating around their lives or orbiting these women's lives. We probably saw those things explored the most within Nii, and in her storyline and in her point of view, we look at things like legacy, expectations, agency, identity, and I just wanted a lot more of that for the other women. If I really had to try to sum up the core or crux of my particular disappointments with this book, I think that I would say that it is, you know that meme where the girl is like, he's just some guy, hit him with your car.
He is not the love of your life. He is literally just a guy. Hit him with your car.
That's me to these women. I just think that the three protagonists were such capable, intelligent, powerful, beautiful women who didn't need these men, and the fact that so much of the conflict revolved around this curse and stemmed from whether or not they were able to, or you know, the desire to keep men in the family, I was just like, girl, you don't need him. I would much rather have taken some time away from the parts of the book that were dedicated to the men and use that to more deeply explore like the mother-daughter relationships, the cousin relationships, just more about the women, especially with Monife and her storyline. I was just watching what was happening to her, being like, girl, I absolutely hate this for you. I want to make it clear that it's not that I think that these women were shallow or that that's all that was talked about in this book. There is a lot that goes on about, like I said, family, legacy, all of that, but I think that it would have been a stronger book or hit harder for me personally if more time was dedicated to that aspect. This is going to be the quickest of spoiler sections, but spoiler section from here. When we find out about what happened to Monife, she drowned herself in the beginning of the book, and you find out that it essentially happened because she got pregnant with her lover's baby, and she called him Golden Boy. She got pregnant with Golden Boy's baby and ended up getting a abortion, which is a bit of a muddy situation, but she ended up sort of getting pressured into an abortion by Ibun, of all people. But she's devastated by the circumstances and she ends up killing herself, which I just hate. I hate it. I understand why all of that would be devastating. I'm just like, girl, you don't need this man. You don't need this man, and I just want you to thrive and be powerful and happy. That's it. That's the only little spoiler I have for this book. I want to be so clear that I did not dislike this book. I'd probably give it like a 3.75. It's almost a 4-star book for me. I had a really good time. I just think that I would have loved it more, and it would have elevated the book a little more for me and my personal taste if, like I said, we had shifted a bit away from the romance aspects of it more to the familial relationships. Yeah, I think just with a little bit of refocusing, this could have been a 4 or 4.5 or even 5-star book for me. Still, I'm glad that I judged this book by its cover, and while the cover got a higher score, 5 out of 5, and the book was a 3.75, I would still recommend this to people, and I am interested in picking up her other book, My Sister the Serial Killer, so you might see that pop up on the channel in the future. I do not think that this book is just a pretty face. I think that it has a powerful story, and I think that many people would really enjoy this book. Like I said, the hang-ups that I have about it are the things that kept me from scoring it higher, or just things very much tied to personal preference. On to my thoughts for the final book in this vlog, The Hounding. I'll start again with the cover. I'm pretty sure that I gave this cover 5 out of 5 stars, and thinking back, it's funny because I think I had said that it looked very sort of pastoral and cozy cottage vibes, and I thought that it might be just like a cute, cozy story, and it was not that. I thought it was a beautiful image. I love the dogs. They definitely manifested in a way that I wasn't expecting. Funny though, because I think that if I had to pick, I loved all of them, obviously, but I think that this might be my least favorite of the 3 covers. Again, it's still a 5 out of 5 star cover, but if I had to pick one, this would probably be my least exciting cover, and yet I think this is probably the book that I enjoyed the most. Alright, spoiler-free section. I feel like I do have a lot that's going to end up in the spoiler section, but I will say, what a book. I really loved this. I loved the tense, poetic, kind of fable-like writing and atmosphere. I loved / hated the characters. I love the way that this book explored topics like freedom, the freedom to be different in a society made up of pressures and expectations, how women and girls are always expected to be accommodating and smiley and kind and whatever, how boys are expected to be tough and rowdy, and how not adhering to those expectations is also dangerous for them. I know I said this in the previous check-in, but I just have to say it again. I loved the way that this book showed how toxic masculinity and the expectations of men and boys to adhere to the standards of toxic masculinity, how that is not just a deadly danger only to girls and women, but it is also a horrible poison that kills the gentleness and sensitivity and goodness in boys and men. I felt so protective of the five girls, obviously, but also of Thomas and of Robin and of Richard. I felt a lot for the grandfather Joseph, who cares a lot for his granddaughters and wants to protect them, but doesn't really know how to do that and is limited by his own age and his physical ailments. In my last check-in for this book, I talked about some of the things I was nervous about, or things that I didn't want to happen but was nervous was going to happen, and I want to talk about the ending too. So now we are going to transition into the spoiler section. So spoilers, big spoilers. In my last check-in, I talked about how Thomas and Robin, I think, were the core ways that we were exploring the paths that boys could take and the choices they have to make in order to reject toxic masculinity. And I was so afraid about what was going to happen. I was dreading that Thomas, who up until that point was very loyal to the girls and was being accepted by the girls, I was so scared that he was going to end up turning on the girls. And Robin is a character who is a young boy who is so gentle and kind and loves animals and hates all types of violence, and he's sort of just been trying to hide in plain sight and fit in with the other boys and men to try to protect himself. I was very afraid that he was also going to give into the pressures and end up turning on the girls or not coming to the girls' aid when they needed it, because we'd already sort of seen that happen earlier in the book. I was so deeply relieved that neither of those things happened. Towards the end of the book, we do have another altercation with Pete Darling, who is still sort of obsessed with these girls in a very disturbing way, and he goes to confront them and he accuses them of turning into dogs and attacking him and also trying to ruin his wedding day and all of this. And Thomas is with them, and Thomas stays true, he stays loyal, and he ends up protecting the girls when Peter gets violent. In the end though, I was so shocked at what happened, because Robin and his little brother Richard are also with them when this is going on. The way that fight and altercation sort of unfolds, because Thomas is fighting with Pete and Pete is like choking Thomas out, Robin is the one that ends up having to kill and stab and kill Pete. This was in one way such a relief, because again, I was afraid that this would be the point at which Robin would turn away and he wouldn't help the girls, but it is so heartbreaking because he has to do this through violence, and in protecting the girls and in helping Thomas and in rejecting the group think, he has to take on violence. He has to act violently, which is something that he has always hated. He has to embody and act out the part of manhood and masculinity that he has probably hated the most. And there's a line that he says after he has stabbed Pete that I thought was so heartbreaking. So this is after Robin has stabbed Pete in order to save Thomas and the girls. He is so upset, he's basically hyperventilating, and he says, Robin shook his head and pulled away his hands. I've become them, he said, tears swimming around his nose and gathering in his mouth. Don't you see? I've become them. I didn't think twice. Who? Anne said. Who have you become? Robin's face was the picture of fear. He looked at her, horrified. Them, he said, and gestured outwards over the river, the village, and the fields towards the world beyond. I thought that was so powerful, to gesture to the world beyond and to talk about all of these people and all of society and all of these expectations, and how in order to do this thing that is arguably the right thing to do, he had to take on this characteristic of violence that he had shied away from his whole life. It's so complicated, right? Because we say, men step up, you have to protect women, protect your girls. But a lot of the times that necessitates that they do take on these characteristics or some of the things that women fear most or dislike most about men, and that is, this violence. Speeding through the end of the book, Thomas takes the blame for Robin, and he is arrested and put in jail. Through a series of events, Temperance is able to break Thomas out of jail, and he goes to reunite with the girls. But once Joseph, the grandfather, hear about what's happened, he tells the girls, we can't hide Thomas, he can't stay here, we have to leave. And his plan is actually for them to leave their family home, to leave his farm, and to go somewhere else and try to make a new life. Later that night, the grandfather can't find the girls in his house, and he looks outside and he sees Thomas kneeling in the grass with 5 dogs. And at the end of the book, they all sort of run off and take off into the woods. I'm going to read you some bits of that scene. This is after Joseph realizes the girls aren't in bed and he looks out the window. It's also very strange because for whatever reason, his eyesight seems to be working for this scene. Joseph's heart stopped when he saw them. There were dogs in the orchard, 5 of them, panting and tall, pink tongues hanging from fanged mouths. A boy crouched among them, hair glinting in the glow of the moon. They circled each other, and then, without warning, they began to run. 5 dogs and a boy, moving through the orchard, leaping the wall, leaving him. His hands still on the window, he began to sob. His granddaughters, those beloved girls, gone. Why had they left him? Where would they go? He squinted into the wooded land beyond the wall, but saw nothing. The dogs, the girls, had disappeared completely. His shoulders slumped. He had seen them, beautiful dogs, fierce and full of power. Amid his grief and his fear, he found another feeling, gladness. The old thought returned to him, that he'd rather they were dogs than damaged girls. He'd rather they were free than confined by him. The implication, right, is that these girls, rather than be confined by society or have to hide or run or live in such a way where they can't be themselves and embrace their strangeness, they instead chose to run away and to flee to the woods with Thomas. And who knows what their fates will be, and who knows how much of this magical realism is actually happening. But I thought that that was a really appropriate ending to the book. I was obviously very sad for Joseph, because now that means that not only has he lost his granddaughters and his remaining family, he also has lost his caretakers, because this man was practically blind and he was relying on his granddaughters to take care of him. And so it's also just really heartbreaking to think about the fate of this man who is now without caretaker, without family, and is just all alone. So you might be able to tell, but this was my personal favorite book of the vlog. I gave the cover 5 stars, and I am personally very happy to give this book 5 stars as well. I don't know if I'm being too generous and there's recency bias, but I just really enjoyed it. Maybe later I'll drop it to 4.5 or something, but doesn't matter. I love the book. I would absolutely recommend it. I'm so glad that I judged this book by the cover, even though my impressions of it being like a cozy cottage story was way off. I don't know if this is this author's only story, but I will absolutely be looking into more of her works or keeping an eye out for future releases, because I just had a absolutely great time. This book was definitely not just a pretty face. To conclude, I have no idea once again how long this vlog is going to be. I'm hoping it is not like 2 hours. I would love for it to stick around the hour-and-a-half mark, but I really just don't know what's gonna happen. I think that this was a really successful reading vlog. Of the 3 books I read, I either really liked them or really loved them. I personally just feel so validated in my taste in covers and my aesthetic driven purchasing habits. I hope you guys had a good time. I know that this vlog was all over the place. We hopped from Hawaii to California and we did a bunch of things. I gave a bunch of scattered thoughts, but I still hope that in the end it was something that you enjoyed watching. If this judge a book by its cover premise of reviews is something that people seem to enjoy, I'll probably do another reading vlog like this, or just another review video sometime in the future. It probably won't be anytime in the immediate future. It might be in a couple months or a few months, but if you liked this sort of setup, keep your eyes out for that and let me know in the comments. If you made it this far, or even if you just watched like 5 minutes of this vlog, I appreciate you so much. Please let me know in the comments which of the 3 covers you thought was the prettiest. If you have any books that you would want to recommend that I include in this series, then let me know in the comments. Just don't tell me what the book is about at all. Just give me a title and let me know that the cover is pretty, and I will definitely check it out. I put a poll on my page asking if people would be interested in a second reading vlog for this month, and it seemed like most people gave that a thumbs up, so I will be filming another reading vlog with 2 books. I don't know if that's going to come out by the end of the month, or it'll probably be early next month, but yeah, if you are liking the vlogs, keep your eyes out for that. As always, thank you so much for being here. Happy reading, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Now for some spoilers. Okay. Now I want to say a lot. Now I want to talk about in my last check-in, I've become them. I didn't think. Robin shook his head and pulled